Hello, authors, book lovers, and storytellers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Reader's Magnet featured author interview, where we dive deep into the world of creativity and inspiration. And our guest for today is the author of the book Asai, an autistic teen's journey to topple a shogun in medieval Japan. So please help me welcome the author, Ms. Sharon Curcio. Sharon, how are you doing today?
Really good. Thank you.
Really love to hear that. And by the way, Sharon, welcome to the Hive. And to all of our viewers, though, and people who are tuning in, again, the book Asai, an autistic teen's journey to topple a shogun in medieval Japan, is available for purchase. But let's talk more about the author in the book itself. So, Sharon, could you please share a bit about yourself and what this book is all about?
Okay, my career background has been, I have an MBA, so it's been corporate, military, and education. I was a high school teacher for like 28 years in English. So I like teenagers a lot, and they're my favorite life forms. So I was really, the two works that are my own, Asai is a screenplay with Asai, and the other, which is a sci-fi screenplay right now, features a teenage boy as the protagonist. So I have two teenage protagonists, one male, one female.
Sorry. So am I mispronouncing the main character's name? Is it, how do you pronounce it? Asai? Or is it Asai?
Say again?
You pronounce the main character's name Asai, not Asai.
Either way.
Either way works.
Asai, which is correct in terms of Japanese. And then when I talk about it here, we say Asai. So
okay. Anything works. Anything works then. So again, talking about the background though, and coming back with this book, and now you do have two books. Having this here, but I just do have a question though. This is just from the top of my head here. Like you're talking about an autistic teen's journey. What was the inspiration behind creating this story? Like, what pushed you to have, again, teens are your favorite life form again, and I do understand it. There are bits ups and downs. They're complex. But what inspired you to make Asai that main character for the story?
Well, when I was a copywriter and I was living in New York City, I took Sumi brushstroke courses.
Oh,
so I took the painting, right? And I've always loved it because it's really simple and beautiful, and in some senses, it's not that hard to do it. There's parts of it I can't do, but there are parts of it I can do. So when I was taking these classes, I'm thinking, I can paint Japanese characters, but I don't know what they mean. Hence, I was the illiterate teenager copyist in a sense. So that experience gave me the fabric of the character. And then because I like teenagers, I knew it was going to be a young woman. And then the autistic is, in her case, she's autistic, but presents as mute. She does not speak.
Oh. So
that's how she's autistic. And so she was born in the 15th century. This novel takes place from 1439 to 1441. And at that time, the shogun very heavily taxed the farmers, like 70% taxes, right? So the Ronin monks joined with the farmers to lead, and they led an uprising protesting the taxes. Well, the shogun came back and just burned down their villages and their homes and their rice stores. So he was not a nice guy for various reasons. So the Ronin, she got involved later in the book, I would say mid-novel, with the Ronins, and everyone at the palace believed she was dead. So they decided to use her ghost, her Yuri, to scare key people in the shogun's administration. And so she actually scared to death her father's successor, the chief scribe, and then she next went after Yoshinori. Now, Yoshinori was assassinated in 1441. This book is a historical fiction. It follows reality of that time period. but he was the only shogun assassinated that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And of course, I had my characters do it, but the novel is threaded with characters that are real and characters that are not. So, we have this interplay of
Oh.
real historical people and then fictional characters.
Oh, I really love the idea, though. It's a mix of fiction and nonfiction. It's one book. Having drawing this inspiration from real people and also putting in your how do you say this? Your how do you say it? Your finesse when it comes to creating fictional characters as well in the story. But when you try to create these characters, Sharon, and talking about you writing this book, how does a typical day of writing looks like for you? Do you have a specific routine or ritual before you start writing?
No, book one was easy for me
Okay.
because Asai was a screenplay before it was a novel. So I
Hmm.
had everything. I had all the plot. I just had to embellish stuff a whole lot and do more research, right?
Hmm.
Book two will cover the time period 1441 to 1443.
Hmm.
And I had to build that from scratch. I
Oh.
had no screenplay to rest on where my plot was pretty much, covered A to Z.
Mm-hmm.
So that's harder. And of course, this whole series will be historical in nature. So
Hmm.
I'm covering the next big event that happens in that time period.
Oh, love that. And so, talking about more about because again, you had a screenplay before, and in book two, you had something to bank on, and starting from scratch. So, with regards to the book, though, what part of the book do you have the most challenge time writing? Then,
I think her haunting scenes,
oh,
because she has to be someone she isn't, as an
mm,
evil Yuri who
okay,
is advancing kind of seductively on her victims. So
mm,
she has to play a role that would be entirely new for her and discomforting. But she gets the training, she gets the movement training. Eventually, the Ronin monks
mm,
make her practice with the weapons. She gets weapons training and movement training, and then she has to do with the costume. The white uh, garb that the Yuri wear with this little square hat and
okay,
the blackened eyes and the white face and all that. So I think that's quite a challenge. And she also has to confront people that have harmed her,
true,
really, really harmed her. So she has to stand up and face her enemies like in
mm,
person, face to face, but dressed as a Yuri. So that's quite a big step
oh,
for a
that's
15-year-old girl, 16-year-old boy. That's quite a big step.
yeah, and I do understand where you're coming from. Again, talking at the teenager's perspective, like unlike us adults, though, we know we have the confidence to confront people and whatnot. But when it comes to teenagers, it's really complicated in what they go through their minds and knowing about things that you're right here. So, but Sharon, because again, the book you wrote though, and again, were there any authors or books that have had a significant impact on your writing style or storytelling approach, or was it all you?
Because I'm a high school teacher,
Hmm.
I can sell the classics. I can tell kids, like, I can sell kids on Milton, and
Oh.
I get them to like it. In fact, one of
Oh.
my favorite things to teach to seniors was Paradise Lost, because the character of Satan that Milton creates,
Hmm.
he's 400 years ahead of his time. And this
Okay.
comes out of what, the 16th century. And Milton was the one who coined the phrase, the mind can make a heaven of a hell or a hell of a heaven. Now, that's a pretty modern idea. And
Hmm.
that goes back to Milton.
Oh.
So I can always hook kids on what is present
Hmm.
about classics, material that's 4 and 5 and 600 years old.
Hmm.
So it's not hard for me. I mean, I pick up the pieces and I can present them, and it all works. And the kids got into it. They liked the character. They thought he was cool. So anyway, you get my point.
Yes, yes.
You can go there, and it's all good. It's all okay.
I love that. And talking about some lines, though, is there any favorite line that you'd like to share that's coming from your book as well?
Yes, uh, when her father dies, Asaya is married
Hmm.
off to the man who replaces the chief scribe. So he's the next chief scribe.
Hmm.
And the Ashikagas, Yoshinori Ashikaga is shogun, they
Hmm.
decide to marry her off and place her in a scribe's household. That makes
Hmm.
sense for this society.
Hmm.
Everybody fills a niche. So they marry her off, and he's the one that discovers she cannot speak because
Okay.
no one knows it. It's
Yes.
kept secret. I mean, women of that era were, especially young women, were supposed to remain silent. You
Hmm.
know, you nod, you do your obeisance, and you go away and do whatever it is you're assigned to do.
Hmm.
So no one knew, and then he found out, and he was furious. So he
Oh.
had her beaten and exorcised and all this crap. Finally, he wanted to get rid of her so badly, he had her framed for adultery
Okay.
and took her and a household guard to the shogun, who branded Asai and exiled her.
Hmm.
So when her body was dumped, so everybody thought she was dead. So then the Ronin monks eventually find her, and the two Ronin monks are Hitano and Kanamura.
Hmm.
And Hitano says when they find out who Asai is, because she can't tell them, they have her explain her life by drawing pictures. And she does. And they start to fit the pieces of visual
Hmm.
evidence together. And of course, they have spies. They figure
Of
out who she
course.
is. So, anyway, Hitano says we need not suppress an entire army to replace one shogun. Kanamura says, come, ride with me and tell me more. A bold plan always amuses me. They ride to Suri's house. She's a Buddhist nun who is keeping Asai at the time. And they knock on her door, and Suri says to Hatana, what brings you to my humble home? And he says, we need your help to replace a shogun.
Hmm.
And she looks at him and she said, do I have hundreds of thousands of warriors hidden here that I do not see? And Hatano says, no, you have one warrior here who will save thousands of lives.
Love that. I love that line, and I love how you delivered it. It has that impact, and it really comes from a way of storytelling. And I really love the line that has been. I'm trying to process it right now, Sharon, and it is a wonderful line. And talking about this book, it really gets me into thinking on what the whole book would look like. And again, it's based on how you tell your story as well, reading some lines shows that you're a good storyteller. But I want to ask you, as a writer as well, Sharon. So, what do you think makes a good story then?
Well, I'm prejudiced. I'm an English
Okay.
teacher. So,
Okay.
I've had to look at it and read a lot of it. So, what makes for a good story? I think there has to be an inviting quality.
Wow.
And good writers set up their introduction to capture you,
Hmm.
whether it's a line someone says that is baked, or whether it's an environment or setting that is either very appealing or very disturbing, whether it's some books start off with an accident,
Okay.
or something shocking. But I think that there's got to be a quality, and you've got to develop your characters in a certain way where the reader wants to know
Hmm.
more about this person, more about this group, more about these people. So it has to be carefully crafted to invite
Hmm.
attention, to invite reader engagement or involvement. It just has to be that. So and good writers do that.
Hmm. I love that. And talking about, yeah, because I mean, when you say this, it's really it really puts it into perspective when it comes with having a tragedy at the start of a story, just to make sure we can pull in people to be interested and talking more about plot. But and because again, Sharon, you are again. as with what we established, you do have the background, the personal experience, and also the influence in writing these stories that you create. And your work really spans differently. We're talking about you wrote a you wrote a play, then afterwards you wrote a novel here. So again, how do you navigate through these genre boundaries? And do you have a favorite right now that you'd love to write in?
Okay, I committed suicide, the novel. All my friends said, make your screenplay a novel, more people will access it. I said, okay, I kind of agree with that. And then I'm not writing the next aside.
Mm-hmm.
I started off with lyric plays. Actually, it was
Mm-hmm.
very curious. One was produced in Michigan in 2022 as an oratorio.
Okay.
It was put to music because it's a lyric play. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
drama on stage, but the quality of the language gives rise to it can be scored. So I did that one. So I'm not a novelist, actually. My key thing is I'm a dialogue writer. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and that's why I like screenplays because they're short and you don't have to do all the description. But so stepping into a novel was a really different part of my journey. And I did
Mm-hmm.
it after I retired when I had time to do the research and figure it all out. So,
Hmm. Well, and again, talking more about research, and again, talking about right now, since you do love novels and you started writing down screenplays, so and again, your friends love that you wrote these plays. So, what I just want to ask you, when it comes with the readers that you currently have, are there any reader reactions that you find the most gratifying or surprising when people read your book?
oh, yeah, I had one lady submit a review and she said, um, when I finished, I
Oh,
wanted to pick it up and read it all over again. And I'm
oh,
thinking, oh, wow. It was a good experience for her. And I think as a writer, that makes you happy when people say, I loved it. And,
hmm,
there was something, I mean, my personal my personal belief as an artist is
hmm,
I don't leave people hanging, and I do want the stories to equal to end with an equilibrium or a calm or an uplift. My feeling is I'm not on this planet to down anybody out with my artwork, right?
hmm,
So my philosophy is art should uplift. It should help. It should
hmm,
make life better. And if it doesn't do that, then I'm sort of, queasy about that. But of course, some of our American novelists, the greatest of them, like
hmm,
Steinbeck and um, uh, several others, they
hmm,
actually painted some grim pictures, like William Faulkner, but
hmm.
it opened a door to some insight. And it gave you insight into the psychological world or the physical world or economic world where things were going on. So if it has to be grim,
Okay.
then it should open that door of insight for us.
Hmm.
But if it's not uplifting and if it's not insightful, then what is it?
Wow. You got me thinking there. You really got me thinking there, Sharon. Really got me thinking. And Sharon, how to say this though. I'm really kind of at loss of words right now when it comes with your book, how you process. And yeah, you are an artist throughout though. It really has that. You really do have the passion when it comes with writing books and writing things that people would love as well, especially with the feedback that you've received. And Sharon, because there again, right now in the current this current age, there are a lot of aspiring people who want to start writing and start their journey as writers. And asking you, Sharon, what advice would you like to give to someone looking to start their own writing journey? Then, is there any advice you can share?
Writing is not haphazard. I've been a writing teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is rigor, it is structure, it is discipline. And I don't know of any writers who succeed without knowing the language, knowing how to structure, um, applying the rigor to themselves. I mean, your first editor is you.
True.
And trust me, I write with a co-writer on 2 other screenplays, and we've torn them apart. We've cut out a third of them. I mean, we're willing to say this needs to be radically changed. And so you need the discipline to see what must be done and do it. I mean, if your screenplay is 120 pages and you just lost 40,
Okay.
oh, well, you fix it, So I don't know what else to say, but I find that today kids don't like to read, let alone write. So if you don't develop the put your ass in a chair and write it, you're not going to get anywhere.
And I really love it. So discipline is just the main component. If ever you want to start writing, if ever anyone out there, including to our viewers, if ever you want to start writing, again, as what Sharon said, if you don't have the discipline and you don't put your ass in that chair and start writing, basically you won't really achieve anything. And I really love that. I really love that. I really love the idea there, Sharon. Because again, if you are someone who just wants to wait for breadcrumbs and want to see, just waiting for things to work out for you eventually without putting in the effort, then what's the point? Where's the satisfaction in writing a book without the general hardships and discipline as well? And
the research is
your research, yeah,
discipline. Sitting down in a chair.
Discipline.
I organize my thoughts when I'm doing other things. And when I sit down to write, there's a document there and I'm writing on it. You can't look at a blank document and expect it to give you inspiration. That does not happen on this planet. And I don't want to be the first to inform you, but and I know writers who say they do that. And I'm like, how could you? When I sit down to write, I have a reason to be there, sitting at the computer with the blank page open. So, I mean, I don't know how other people do it, but, I try to organize my thoughts and my materials and review the research and put things into, I don't do elaborate outlines, but I do a very basic, like a couple of words outline, so I know where I'm going. I have a roadmap, but I just don't know how other people do it. I mean, I just know that that's what I have to do. And I would be very unhappy if I sat there and looked at a blank page.
Sharon, I do agree with you that, because again, there are some authors or some writers though, like they just sit down, it's staring at a blank page without any general idea, and they can start writing. And again, is what you said though, facing a blank page, trying to do that outline. But I just want to this is going to be a weird question you're sharing, especially when it comes with the book that you wrote, because again, it's a mix of historical fiction and nonfiction as well. So how do you work with your world building then? Like, do you have any? Because again, since your story takes in a different place though, and you had done your research, so how do you approach it? Like, do you start from a small area, then you expand it to a bigger one, or do you start with the bigger, then go to smaller details? Sorry about the question though. I just
went to Japan in September. So, but I did my research. I knew the cities we had to be in. I looked at the difference in the topography in the countryside. We're in the 15th century. That world does not exist anymore. But the distance from Kyoto to Yoshino, which is about 50 miles, hasn't changed, right? It's still 50 miles.
Of course.
So, I mean, you have to nail down parts of your book. I think I did a weak job of integrating the Japanese holidays and festivals into my book, because for some reason that was just kind of in flux for me. I didn't grab that and nail it down. That's my fault. But in other respects, you have to have the geography right. True. You have to know what the time period looked like. You have to know what their technology looked like, what they could do and what they couldn't do. And by the way, what they could do is amazing. I'm just amazed at the work they did with, silk and weaving and dyeing and all that stuff. That was just like, and of course, when you see the villages of farmhouses in that area, many of them were built 3 stories. And on the top story is where the family kept their silkworms and fed them mulberry leaves, right? So the house had, they had cottage industries. They would grow, they would, raise silkworms, they would, plant a vegetable garden. Japanese homes didn't really have fireplaces. In medieval Europe, you get that. In Japan, you don't. I didn't mention fireplaces at all in my novel because I was really unclear about that, but I was pretty sure they didn't have them. So when I went to Japan, I saw in the medieval era how they made their cooking facilities, So when you're world building, other than fantasy writers, I don't know how exactly they do theirs other than, really liking Dune and thinking that was an excellent sci-fi book and, later a film series. But yeah, I think if you're doing historical, like it really happened, then you have to know what really was the order of living in that time period.
Love that. And thank you much for that advice, there, Sharon. And I really love it. Again, it comes with the research, comes with the discipline, especially with world building, getting the characters in line, and making sure that the story is fleshed out. But talking about the story, are you planning to make a sequel for this book as well, Sharon?
Oh yeah. The sequel will be 1441 to 1443, and I'm working on it now. It's actually done. I'm just getting, like you have to go through a book about 10 times on your own to get rid of the crap. And then you can take it to a submissions editor. I certainly took aside to a submissions editor. And then after that, I made corrections. Then it went for, typesetting, etc.
Love that, love that. And do you have a time frame on when this book would be available? Or
I think it's going to be available in early 2026. I don't think I'll get it published this year because publishing a book is expensive. So I think that I'm going to save up and get everything ready to launch early 2026.
And again, but Sharon, that is still one beautiful thing. Because again, and you know what? To all of our viewers and book lovers, though, while we are waiting for the sequel of Asahi to come out, though, I highly suggest for you to grab a copy of Asahi, available through Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Feel free to check it out, though. We're gonna make sure we can put some links on the comments below. We're gonna pin them. So all you gotta do is just click on those links, and then you'll be routed to the Amazon page and purchase the book for yourself. So while waiting, start reading the story, though, and hey, who knows, you might be falling in love with another sequel that you'll fall in love again over and over in the next future. Okay, but again, you know what, Sharon, I just want to say this, though, as we come with today's conversation, though, as we end this, I want to say thank you very much, though. And it's rare for me to learn a lot of things, especially from a passionate author from you, and I didn't know that there are different takes when it comes to writing stories, and I love your take on how you created your books. Thank you very much for joining us today, Sharon.
All right, and thank you, Rob. You've been so wonderful and patient. Thank you.
No, and I really love it, and I can really feel the passion through the screen I'm having right now. And you know what? To all of our viewers, though, thank you very much for tuning in, and always remember that every ending is just a new beginning in the world of stories. May your reading adventures be endless and your imagination boundless. And as we say here at Reader's Magnet, we share your stories with the world. Thank you, and have a good one. Bye-bye.